Hello and welcome to Two Mutables in a Pod. This is a podcast exploring all things taboo through the lens of spirituality, astrology and bloody life experience. For all of you who are well versed in astrology, this is all the good stuff in the 8th house. My name is Bibi.
My name is Emily.
And we are your hosts. This episode is a fun one because it's the first time that Emily and I have two beautiful guests with us. This episode is a special birth chart style interview where we will be doing a cosmic dive into the guests that inspired this whole new kind of format and structure for the episode. So I'm just going to briefly tell you about what this is. The concept of this episode is for us to bring guests onto our podcast because we really want this podcast to be a space where we connect with people, a place where we can start to build community and to reach others through the power of our own birth charts. So we have been prepping and priming you guys with all the synastry episodes and content, and these two guests are siblings. So we will be having a beautiful discussion based off of their experiences, their birth charts, and what both Emily and I have witnessed within their birth chart. So I would love to warmly welcome Hilda and Elijah to the podcast. Welcome, guys.
Hey.
Would you like to just briefly introduce yourself? I'll start with yourself, Hilda.
Hey everyone, I am Hilda Emma, but everyone calls me Hilda, or Emma, depending on what you prefer. I'm 32, a social worker, and I'm looking forward to the podcast and the discussion.
Hi guys, my name's Elijah, 30 years old. I work in IT, in the sports industry, and I'm excited to be on the Two Mutables podcast and just have a discussion about our charts, and I can't wait for this.
Yay! Welcome.
So guys, I really love that, the intro. It seems that we're going to have some fun today. And I thought, as Mimi has mentioned, we will be looking at the parts that tie your charts in together. And something that you both have in common is your Sagittarius risings, meaning that, you might experience similar things, but just in different ways, depending on the planets that sit in that house where your Sagittarius rising is home to. Sag is the eternal wisdom. It's the wise explorer, picking up experiences that teach us along life's path. So my first question to you is, what is something that connects you to your sense of adventure and freedom, and what makes you both feel alive?
What connects me to my sense of freedom? I would probably say one thing I'm always up for is a challenge. So challenging myself in things that I may have never done, whether that be sports, opportunities and jobs, but mainly sports, because there's never a sport that I won't try. There's never a sport I haven't done. I'd always say, you know what, let's take a crack at it. Even if I'm terrible at it, I've tried it. And then you get a thrill out of doing stuff you've never done before. That's what I would say for me. Like, I've done a boxing fight, never boxed in my life.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, let's go. And we'll do it. And then we both actually have a aquathlon coming up in October. So to look forward to, and another thing, I guess, that helps our freedom and adventure.
I love how there's nothing off limits and everything seems to be you're willing to give it a try, but you're willing to come at it from the lens of like, I've never done this before, but I'm willing to learn. So I love that ties that in. And Hilda, over to you.
I would say, similar to Elijah, sports seems to be like a running theme within our family. Like, we do have an older sister as well, and I think all of us are somewhat active to a degree, and I think that's really grounding for all of us. I also say we all like to travel. Like, traveling is a big thing for us, and as a sibling group, we like either travel together, we travel in like our duos. So I guess because of like the age dynamics between us, like me and Monica started traveling together first. Monica and Elijah have traveled together. Me and Elijah have traveled together. Very like random. Like, I think I told you for like Italy. I think I told him the week before. I was like, come to Italy. And he was like, cool. I was like, you don't have to pay for anything. You just have to pay for your food. And then he came. So I think traveling and exploring is a really big thing for us. And it's not just sort of like outside of England as well. Elijah is very prone to going out to like different cities. I like exploring like different parts of England as well. And I think that ties in with like activities. I like hiking. Like, it's something that I picked up recently. So I like to go on long walks, and I'll just like drive to a park and just go for a long walk for a couple of hours and just come back. So yeah, I would say sports is a really big grounding thing for us in terms of like our sense of adventure. But I also think traveling, whether it's within the UK or outside the UK, is a really big thing for us. Because then I guess you get to see different types of cultures, individuals, like ways of life that I guess it becomes just a part of your makeup, whether you like it or not, because you just get to see more of the world and it expands your worldview.
Yes. Do you know what? I really love how you mentioned the word expand, because Sagittarius energy really speaks to the expansion. You know, you spoke about exploring cultures, traveling, fusing that in with the things that you love doing. And I think it really screams like, I'm just like, oh my God, I love these things that you're saying, because I've got a Sag moon and you're speaking to that part of my soul. So I really get it. And I love the fact that that's where you guys also meet in the middle. You're able to go on sibling trips. And it's like, you know, all right, you can let me know a week before and I'm ready to jump on the flight, whereas some people might not have that dynamic within their own sibling connection. So yeah, I love that for you both.
I mean, I think Elijah's like the spur of things, because I think I come at things a lot more cautiously.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's just, I'm sure you guys will tell us it's because of how like everything manifests differently in our charts, but I'm definitely let's think about this for a minute. And Elijah's more like, no, let's just do it.
We'll do it now, worry about the consequences and whatever comes up later.
Like literally, like the aquathlon just called me up literally at work and he was like, should we do this? And I was like, and I was like, sure, why not? I think when we went to Morocco, like 2 years ago now, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, Elijah was like, oh, I want to do a hot air balloon. And I was like, sure, let's do it. Why not? Great experience though. So I'm like, I'm a bit more apprehensive, but I'll also just jump in because it's like, why not? Let's do it for the thrill. I'll hold safety in mind to some degree. I'm like, let's think about this. Let's lay down the side. And Elijah's like, full steam ahead. Let's do it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is so funny, because we're going to come on to this part about the emotions, but I think this really ties in to the ways you navigate in life through your moon sign. And you know how you mentioned, you know, you take more of the cautious approach, whereas Elijah's like, no, let's just get into it. We'll deal with the consequences later. And I think that really does speak to your moon. So no, thank you so much for opening up that part of your lives to us.
I was noticing Emily and I like smiling and nodding at the same parts, because everything that you're both saying is like so on brand, I think, for being Sagittarius risings. That adventure, that freedom, and that just like zest for life is what I'm feeling. And it's such a beautiful energy. So yeah, again, thank you for sharing that. You, Hilda, you rightly mentioned you have an older sibling, Monica, and I've included her in this portion. One of the things that prompted me to ask you both together was the fascination, I think you know, Hilda, the fascination between your sibling dynamic, and just this sense of you guys being so connected, and like the drive to do things together or to communicate with one another. And Hilda and Elijah both have the Sagittarius risings, but Monica, who is the eldest, is a Leo rising. So between all three of you, you're all fire risings, which is something that I was like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting to be incarnated in the same family and have kind of a similar energy with different expressions. So to me, one of the things that was coming up was there must be a meeting of minds in some way. The way that the chart is laid out, there must be similarities in the way that you kind of think and approach things. When we look at the houses in astrology, your third house represents your siblings, but it also represents your communication, your local neighborhood or local networks. And for yourselves, Hilda and Elijah, they're both ruled by Aquarius. So Hilda, you have your Saturn, and which is retrograde, and Lilith. Saturn being the disciplinarian, the authoritarian, some say the restrictive element, whilst Lilith is the suppressed parts of us, or the things that we might classify, or others might classify as taboo. Whereas Elijah, you have Uranus in this energy, which we always say Uranus is like the wild card energy. Like you never know what you're going to get with Uranus, but it's because it's constantly trying to innovate and constantly trying to improve and to develop things in a new and unexpected way. So it's progressive to have this energy in the house of the third house, and it often goes against the grain, often goes against the status quo. So my question to you both is, was there anything unique within your upbringing that brought you closer as siblings? Or did it ever feel like you and your siblings, including the eldest sibling, did you ever feel like it was you guys as like your own community, and it was just like it was just you guys against the world type of thing?
I remember like really distinctly in therapy saying that my sibling group feels like a subsystem within a system. Sorry for any of the listeners who are sociologists bringing in theory there, but I feel like we function as like a family within a family, I guess, to use less like theory. And I think I feel like I can rely on them more so than at times our parents. I just feel like we're very bonded. And I think at times, no, actually, I've never thought it was like a forced feeling, but it just felt like it's almost like a saving grace for me. I don't want to speak for Elijah or Monica, but I'm just very grateful that it's never felt like it's forced or we have to be in each other's presence or we have to like one another. I'm always grateful that I have siblings that I genuinely like and genuinely like spending time with. And I think my truest best friends are my brother and my sister. So for me, it's always felt like, yeah, our bond is one that is really unique, but one that's very precious to myself. And I feel like no matter where we are or no matter what happens, I know I can just sort of like pick up the phone and just be like, hey, what's up? So yeah.
Yeah, and I think to follow on from that as well for me is that to add, I would say that it's never felt a chore to have siblings or have Hilda and Monica, my older sisters, because people are like, oh my God, you must have two older sisters. That must be hard. I'm like, no, it's really comfortable having two older sisters because I know I can just go to Hilda, go to Monica, speak to them about any situations that they've been through that I'm currently going through. Because 9 times out of 10, they've probably gone through it, seen it, and they have the wisdom and the knowledge to pass it down to me to say, this is what's going to happen. Think about it from this point of view. If it doesn't happen on this side, then why don't you think about X or Y? So Monica's more, I wouldn't say calculated, but she's a logical thinker in the way she comes across and how she interacts with people. And for me, Hilda's more the emotional one. She can think of things from an emotional standpoint. She'll think about the other person, whereas I don't usually tend to see it. I'll tend to see it from a person's point of view, but then I'm like, what does the impact of that have on that person? I think just bouncing ideas of Hilda and Monica, for me, I'm like, you know what?
Yeah,
now I can see a collective of ideas and I can understand it from X, Y, and then So I think for me, it's that it's never felt a chore. I've always loved having older sisters, so it's good to have older sisters in your life, really. For me.
Oh, you guys like tugging at my baby heartstrings. I think if there's anyone who's gonna cry, it's me. And this like so like emotional because I've never heard people speak about their siblings. And when you say like it's like a subsystem, a subgroup, and you are your own kind of like unit, and that just knowingness and that trust between you guys, for me, it's just something beautiful to witness. But to hear you guys saying that in such a poetic way is really, really beautiful. Do you feel like you've always connected to that, or was there like a pivotal moment where that kind of became stronger or reinforced?
No, I think it's always been there really since, because Monica's looked after us, and I think as we were young, Monica's babysat Hilda and myself. So
yeah,
I think even from then it's that once we've seen what Monica's had to do for us, then it's like, okay, she's off to uni, for instance. Now it's just Hilda and myself, and then Hilda's now the oldest one. Now I have to like go by what Hilda says. She's the older sister. She's the one who knows everything, so I have to essentially abide by it. I can't just be like, oh no, I'm not going to do this. No, you have to listen to your older siblings. So I guess in that sense, it not essentially brought us closer, but it's like we understand the dynamic between us. It's like you respect your older, and then that's it. From me at least, you respect your siblings. So it's not really been like an instance in life where it's just brought us together. We've always been a tight,
I guess I would say it's quite and similar to what you're saying, Elijah, is that I think Monica, because there's a big age gap between us, like 10 years between Elijah and Monica, 7 and a bit, close to 8 years between like me and Monica. So I've always said that Monica went from being like a second parent to then being more like a sister, just because of the responsibilities that were placed on her as an older sister. And I think like growing up and then sort of assuming some of that, but never truly like assuming it in totality, because I think because that takes away from Monica's experience and what she's had to do and like the responsibility and expectation that has been placed on her. I just think transitioning between that to then, from one space to another gives, I guess, a lot of gratitude towards what she's done. So I think naturally become like you're wanting to become closer and wanting to just forge a more positive bond, not because of like you've had to do that, but I think I hold more of a space similar to Elijah of like, actually, I appreciate all that you've had to do. And actually, I just don't want you to ever feel like I'm ungrateful for that. And I guess I don't want to necessarily like romanticize, because I think all siblings have sort of like ups and downs in their dynamics. But I think at the grounding for all of us is just always wanting to be close to one another and always wanting to have positive connections and relationships till like death do us part. So I think because we hold that as our sort of like ground zero, as our centering self, we can always just come back to things when things can sometimes like go disarray. But I think, it's just always, we always want to remain connected. We've always had that and we don't want to lose that.
I love that. Just as like a separate kind of question to yourself, Hilda, I mentioned you've got Saturn and Lilith in your third house, which is of the siblings. Did you ever like feel a sense of like duty or responsibility, I guess, the sibling unit? And did you ever wish to break free or separate from that at any point?
No, I've never wanted to break free. I think the things that I've taken on as like a sibling duty, I just think is part and parcel of being sibling. And for me, it's kind of been like, why wouldn't I do that? So I know I've had like times in life where I've had like other people comment and be like, that's a lot that you're doing as a sister. Like, so I've had some people say it's like not fair, etc., etc. And then for me, I'm sort of almost incredulous, because I'm just like, what? Like, why wouldn't I do that for my brother or my sister? For me, it's just, what are you talking about, kind of thing. Like, I get frustrated because I'm just like, you don't know my siblings, so don't talk bad. So I'm the one that gets quite defensive and be like, let's relax here, because it can go left real quick, and we don't want to do that. So no, it's never felt like a chore. It's never felt like, I mean, I have a sense of duty, but I think to have positive relationships and to have long lasting relationships, there has to be a sense of like duty, loyalty, and like reciprocity in terms of like what is done for you and what's done for to like for the people that you love. Otherwise, I guess you don't really build solid foundations, and you don't know that someone is there for you and will always be there for you to withstand whatever comes. And I just feel like that's a part of life. Things happen, you're asked to do things, and you just step up to the mark. So I don't think it's been like, oh, I have to do things. If anything, at times I'm like asking to do more things.
It sounds like it's quite aligned with your values in a way, and that is just like a part of like who you are as a person, that for you it's standard, it's normal, because you value it and you believe in that.
Yeah, no, very much so. I don't know, I just feel like when sort of like wider conversation with people like, oh, there's just no more community, I'm just like, well, you only create that through what you do, and like the onus is on you to ensure that you have people that love you and that you love back. And I guess I'm sure again this probably speaks to my chart, but I think you do that by actually showing up and by actually doing things, and by like just showing people that you are there, whether it's in words, whether it's in actions, or whether it's just in like silent knowing and silent being there. But I just don't think you can create that sense of like love, connection, and sort of like joyness just by saying, I'm here for you, when you're not really backing that up with like actions, whether it is like picking up the phone and having a long conversation, or whether it's like actually sort of coming around and helping someone out. I just don't think you can create layers to a relationship without doing.
That Capricorn moon is loud. like as you've just been saying, I'm like, wow, I'm really feeling your moon here, which I know we're going to get into, but it's beautiful again because it's like it's a reinforcement of your beliefs. That's what it feels as you're speaking. Elijah, how about yourself? Like, did you ever have a moment where you wanted to break free from the sibling unit?
Nah, because I know what, like, if I wanted to break free from the sibling unit, I would in turn start feeling sad and I'll think, oh, I miss my sisters. Why don't I just speak to them? So I think for me, it's never a case of wanting to break free. And breaking free in the sense, no, for me, but I know, let's say Hilda's off to uni, so I get time away from her, but it's good time away. It's not like, oh, she's off to uni. She's off to uni for a reason. So obviously she's enjoying time with her uni. She's away outside of the UK for a little while. So it's like, okay, cool. Now I get my time. But when she's back, it's like, oh, you're back now. Like, we get to enjoy to do stuff. And so it's not really a case where it's like, for me, no, my sister's gone. I should now do what I need to do, not contact away. But no, for me, it's like we've always remained close. And I wouldn't want to say it's something that I've always wanted to break. No.
Yeah. And again, like such different responses, because what I'm hearing from you, Elijah, is that sense of actually time and space, yes, can be good, but it's almost like it brings you closer in a way, or there's a deeper sense of appreciation. That's what I'm sensing as you're speaking, which again, I feel I'm hearing your moon, which is a Libra moon. That's what I'm feeling. I don't know if you feel that too, Emily.
No, like literally as you were speaking, I was listening and I was just like, you know how Hilda spoke about that responsibility and that duty. I think that speaks a lot to her Saturn in Aquarius. And I think, you know how you mentioned that it feels like a subgroup within a subgroup, and it's almost as if it's a mini family. I think Aquarius, or like the energy of Aquarius, is all about the mind, how the minds meet and merge. And you know how, Hilda, you mentioned that you can almost go to war for your siblings. Like when people talk left, you're ready to just like on-site them about that. And I see that Lilith being the thing that we passionately defend. I see that coming through quite strongly in your chart. But one thing I think helps meet you both in the middle is that you both said it doesn't feel like a chore. And that's why I say there's a mutual understanding. It's like mutually receptive. So yeah, and I do see your moon signs, like we're going to get into that. So when you were speaking, I was like, yeah, I see the Capricorn moon, I see the Libra moon. But it was really interesting to hear that, specifically more so because it's not something I've experienced myself. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. We've been talking about the moon, and I found it quite interesting. Before I actually attempted to think about this, I was like, let me sit with this, because I know that Elijah, you're a Libra moon. And when I think about your Libra moon, I think about the wider partnerships and connections that you might have, standing up for what's right and just, but also finding emotional fulfillment, filling your soul, bringing joy, happiness, peace, whatever emotional fulfillment feels like and looks like for you, through the pursuits and connections that allow you to celebrate the many artistic ways, creative ways you can show up in the world, but also creating room for you to lead with your social wit and your charm. And I can see it when you're speaking. I see that in you,
Oh my gosh. I say this all the time. My brother is like the biggest social butterfly. So I'm so glad to know where it comes from. But honestly, I say it to him everywhere because I'm just like, you're talking too much. Everywhere you must talk. Everywhere you must make a friend. Everyone you must know. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, it's enough. It's enough.
Talk to. And I think that comes from working in a hospital for me.
Yeah.
I think it was 6 years catering in the hospital.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Seeing patients every day, weekend upon weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You have to like build up a conversation. You're serving them breakfast, lunch, tea. You're giving them teas and coffees throughout the day, so it's hard not to have a conversation.
Yes.
Mike, who's essentially not well in a bed, and they probably like God knows how long. And the last thing they want to do, I mean, they always want to have a conversation. You just want to have a chat with them. So I think for me, it's like saying hello, introducing yourself, and taking time to talk to someone, because you never know what that person's going through. For me, I never know what that person's going through until I've given them a cup of coffee, and I'm like, I'm looking forward to that. And I'm like, you know what? Get you a biscuit as well. How about that?
You know what? I really feel this speaks to Libra energy. Libra being an air sign, communication is key for these natives. And I think that you're able to lead from a space of at being empathetic, but also fostering and connecting on a deeper level. Like, you mentioned giving them a coffee is one thing, but finding out their story is also another layer to developing those bonds. And I think Libra is that sign where you mentioned it's that social butterfly, the person who's willing to stand up for fairness. So I really see that through the examples that you've shared. And, as I was thinking about Hilda's Capricorn moon, and I really had to sit with this one. And the first thing that came to mind for me was that intimacy may be reserved for the select few with this moon placement. However, those who are willing to stand the test of time and prove that they're in it for the long haul might get a glimpse into the inner part of the world, of your emotional world that you might not showcase so openly with others. And Hilda, I think for you, finding emotional fulfillment comes through more so the earthly mission of being of service to others. It can also come through the routines and structures that create stability for you and ground you. And, often as you were speaking with Elijah, it was lots of like rationality. Okay, this feels like, is this safe? Should we be doing this? It's weighing up the pros and the cons. And I see that in being able to ground yourself. A Capricorn moon is an earth sign. I think it is rooted in the things that keep us stable, keep us practical, but also keep us like pragmatic at the same time. And that's something that I saw through quite strong when I thought about your Capricorn moon. So I would love to know how you would say you nurture each other on an emotional level, and what's one piece of advice you could give your sibling to enable them to tap into their emotions a bit more.
For instance, we'll give an example. Badminton 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I didn't wait for my sibling. I didn't wait for Hilda before going badminton. And I knew, like, I got home from work.
Yeah.
Downstairs, I got ready. I changed and I went to badminton. I got to badminton and the woman was there. She was like, "Oh, is Hilda not coming?" I was like, "I don't know. I didn't go upstairs. I just went home, got changed, and I came here." And she was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then Hilda shows up, and I'm like, "Oh, you're here." And then we speak the whole entire time. But I knew from then, I knew she was pissed at me.
Yeah.
So a week went by. We had a discussion about it. I waited for her at the door. And then Hilda said to me, is this you waiting for me? I was like, "Yeah, I was waiting for you." She's like, "Right." And then I said to her, I didn't want to speak about it before badminton, so we spoke about it after badminton. And then, she then expressed to me what the issue was at the time. And I said, "You know what? Okay, I didn't see it from your point of view. I'm sorry. Apologise." And now we moved on from it. But I'm sure Hilda will tell you her version of it, of how it went. To get it out. And yeah, so I think for me, it's just having that conversation with Hilda, but she will definitely explain in more detail.
Yes.
Her side and the emotional of it. And then I'll be like, "You know what? It's not even the fact that I said sorry for the sake of sorry. I was like, you know what? I didn't see it from her point of view. I didn't know. I should have done better myself for asking if she was going to come."
But being able to create room and allow that person to even start and instigate that communication, I think is telling of your moon sign. The fact that you are receptive to even, you could have just been like, "Well, I'm not speaking to you," and that's it. But you were able to kind of step out of your own experience, look at where Hilda could potentially be, pissed off, annoyed, or upset by those actions, and instigate communication. So I think that is another way of nurturing each other, but also not allowing things to just like rest under the rug and not addressing them. So that's interesting. Hilda, I'd love to hear your perspective and an experience that you are willing to share.
I would say, I think, as Elijah has said previously, I'm definitely the most emotional one out of like the three of us. So I think between me and Elijah, I think I do a lot more of the, have you thought about this from this perspective? Like how someone might be feeling, think about how that manifests, think about how this could impact someone, not just because of the scenario, but what could be impacting them and how they're showing up. Because I think at times Elijah, because he's like very sort of like social butterfly, he's very sort of like, yeah, everything's great, everything's cool, everything's funky. It's just like, I think sometimes I ground him at times. I'm like, hey, let's just think about this from a different perspective. Let's just think about this with a wider lens. Or sometimes let's just hone in on this. Like even when he tells me things about like other people, I can ask like questions and he'll be like, "I don't know," and I'll be like, and it's always like it's sort of like the hows, the whys, the what's going on with that person, just a bit more let's get underneath the surface. And Elijah's like, oh, I didn't ask, or I'm not quite sure. And I guess that's just the inference. So I think that's kind of my impact on Elijah. I don't know whether he would agree or disagree, but I think I'm more of the like, let's just think about people's emotional worlds a bit more, and then how impacts on how they're showing up, and then how that impacts on a situation. I think that's kind of my vibe when it comes to Elijah and nurturing.
No, and as you were speaking, like I just kept thinking about, you know, as I said, being a Libra moon, that your predominant element sign that rules that moon is the air, and you being a cat moon, you were ruled by the earth. And I could almost just see like a plant. So you know how you plant a seed and like that seed is blossoming through and it's green and it's rooted, you know, and you spoke of being that one that grounds him, that, you know, sometimes brings him back to planet Earth and it's like, Elijah, okay, cool. Can you view it from this side and this side? And I think with air signs at times, there might be tendencies to be on go, be flighty, be in the move, because, you know, the wind is forever moving. It's never like just a constant state of just still wind. The wind's forever moving and evolving. And I think, you know, it helps to have that dynamic where you're able to help ground him, but he's also able to help instigate those conversations and communications that, you know, things that need to be addressed that might, in some connections, just be swept under the rug. So I see the mutual receptive energy. I see how you guys support each other, but most importantly, how you provide, I guess, I want to say space and room for you both to show up as how you are.
But I was just wondering about the advice portion. Yes. Is there anything that you would give your sibling as a piece of advice so that they can come closer to their emotions?
I'll probably say for me, if there's anything you have or need to say, don't hide it, man. Just let me know.
Oh, when I think of you, I think it's more so being okay and trusting yourself to go beneath the surface. I just think sometimes like you're the repair guy and the one that can like hold things together. And I see it not just like within family, but I also see it within like your friendships as well. When like sometimes at work, you're always just like the go-to repair guy. But I think sometimes it's okay to kind of like put things on pause and think about like, how is this really impacting me, and making like the shifts and changes more selfishly for yourself, and just not, I mean, I'm not saying you have to like free up the emotions to everyone, but I think finding individuals that you have that emotional safety and being a lot more open with.
Again, like the advice that you gave one another was quite typical, I think, for the element. So Elijah's advice to Hilda was to just say it, and to just kind of like, if anything's coming up, which again is that air, and just like using the gift of communication in situations that might be emotionally challenging. Whereas yours was about the earthly connection and finding that safety and security, I guess, in a way. And yeah, it's just the richness, I think, in both of your advice to one another is, again, a beautiful way in which how synastry can work, where we can use our own energy to help better or support the other person. So yeah, beautiful responses. I didn't explain like what it was specifically that caught my attention about the relationship and the dynamic between you guys. However, there was a distinct moment I remember, Hilda, you sharing with me about this luck that Elijah seems to have. And yes, that my ears were like, oh, what's this? I need to figure out what that is. There must be something in the chart. There was just this sense of luck seeming to follow you, Elijah, and you're not having to do anything, and it just being like, just you being you is enough for like opportunities to flow and to just like attract to you. I think I remember at the time I said to Hilda, there must be Jupiter somewhere. Jupiter is somewhere comfortable. There's something about Jupiter. And when I looked at your chart, Jupiter is associated with the sign of Sagittarius, and Jupiter is that planet of optimism, luck, expansion. Whatever Jupiter touches, he expands or he multiplies. So for you, Jupiter is in your first house, the first house being the entry point of your chart. It's like your doorway, if you like. So sitting on your ascendant, which is your rising sign of Sagittarius, you are literally the love. I can't describe it in any other way, but the way that I was seeing it, as Jupiter sits in your first house, it's this, the ways that bees are attracted to honey. Like just that magnetism. That's the word, magnetism. So I don't know if it's something that you connect to in terms of feeling that, but our first house is that first impressions. It's also our physical appearance. And I think for you, whether you're doing something or not doing something, it's just an underlying natural energy where people are either drawn to you or they wish to share something to you.
Mm.
So my first question is, do you connect to that energy?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been lucky since birth.
Yeah.
5 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. I wasn't really expected to be like, came out 1.21 kilograms, and it's like you're not really expected to survive. Survival rates aren't that great when we were premature. You never know. It could be up and down. And I think for me, it's like blossoming to the person I am today, and then going through what I've gone through in terms of, I don't know. For me in high school, when my appendix burst, and I was told that if you stayed home another hour, you wouldn't have been here. For me, I'm still here, and I think that's a stroke of luck for the fact that Hilda was the only person there to call the ambulance and be like, yeah, he needs to go to the hospital. And another thing, doing charity boxing event, ending up in hospital for 10 days with rhabdomyolysis. It's like your body went through a lot of stuff, muscle tissue broke down, and now you're here to tell the tale. So I think that sense of luck does follow me in the fact that I'm able to tell the tale and just essentially continue the story and of who I am, essentially.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear the examples that you gave are related to your health and your physical vessel. And whilst there are other parts of the chart that we could look at, that first house is physically you, that physical manifestation of who you are. And so to hear your experiences from a health perspective and how you associate that with luck is really, really interesting. And it's literally from birth. And then you've had other experiences throughout life that have almost come to show you that blessing as well.
Yeah.
Outside of like the health, what would you say has been like the best or the most fun experience that you have got to receive as a result of this kind of lucky, opportune energy?
I would say working in the sports industry. I could probably say not many people have been able to work in the sports industry. And I think for me, it's not really luck, but just sharing that with other friends, siblings, family, friends, the fact that I now work in a sports industry and I have the opportunity to bring people there. And I think for me, that fills me with like happiness. I always go back to the time where I took my friend Ace, his 2 boys, Carter and Jaden. And I think Carter was around like 6 years old at the time, and he went to see Arsenal play away at Brentford, although we were sat in the Brentford end. And I just seeing his face when he was stood on the chair, beaming from cheek to cheek, and I nearly cried. And I was like, that's made my day. That's made my whole year, just seeing how happy he was. And I was like, you know what? I love that. And I think for me, it's just sharing that experience with other people when it comes to sport, because live sport is fun and it's not easy to get into. So the fact that people can go and watch it, and I have opportunity to say, people, I can bring you to this. The fact that they can come back and tell me, oh, I had a great day, it was amazing. I'm like, you know, that's enough. That's enough for me.
Yeah. And that's again like something I maybe hadn't thought of or considered is, well, what do you do with that luck? And it sounds like for you, it's really important that you get to share that with other people. And I think Sagittarians, to me, like, I think they are quite social in that they do bless people in their lives. Like from people who I know who have Sag placements, they want to share, they want to, especially like to people who they love, trust and value. So again, that was just really lovely to hear. This isn't on the questions, but I have to ask this, Hilda. From your perspective, what has been the best experience that you have got to be a part of or witness as a result of Elijah sharing that with you?
Oh my gosh, everything to do with sports. I think it's football matches, it is going to Wimbledon. Like, we've grown up in Southwest London all our life, and Wimbledon has always been like touching distance, but not something that I've ever been able to go to just because of how the ticketing system is. So to be able to go to Wimbledon for the first time this year is fantastic. And I think Elijah's jobs are like one of his like biggest manifestations of like how luck just has followed through. And I just remember him saying like really casually to me in like a conversation, be like, "Oh, my friend's moved to the F1." It was.
Yeah.
It was the F1.
That's when I was working my very first IT job. I'd worked with a guy called Dan, absolutely knowledgeable guy, and then he left to go work for Formula One. I was like, you know what, I'll be pretty cool idea to work in sport. And I just remember saying that to him.
And it was because we didn't speak more of it. I just remember Elijah telling me, "Oh, I'm applying for like these positions," and I was like, "Wow, that's really like cemented the seed." And I was like, spurring him on, because I was like, "Actually, that's really good to be able to marry up your skill set with your passion." I think anyone would love to be able to do that for their like day-to-day job. I think work then just doesn't feel like work, even with everything that comes with it. And then I think him landing a Premier League position was, I mean, I don't know how Elijah feels, but I was so proud, because I was like, I know this is really difficult because there's only so many teams in Premier Leagues. I think working in such a prestigious field within sports, and that's so worldwide, I think Premier League is if not the biggest leagues, because it's just such a reputable league and it's an established league, and everyone wants to come into it no matter where you go, and it's got such great players and teams. I'm like, that's such a good job to land, and that's helped him pivot into a very prestigious tennis industry. So yeah, I think for me it's that. And then there's just things that will happen to him, like he'll just walk in and be like, "Oh, I got this for free," or "For free." "Oh, you know what? They just said that they liked me and they gave me this," and I'm like, right. It's like only Elijah would get that. Oh, it's only Elijah. And there'll be times, I think even recently, like because there's just a lot of things happening in our house at the moment, so we're like all over the shop. We went to Tesco because I forgot some things, and the one thing that I went in there for, I forgot. I said, and so I spun round in the car, and I was like, "Elijah, you go in because they won't say no to you." Lo and behold, they didn't say no to him. They were just like, "All right, quick, mate," because it was like literally like 2 minutes to closing, and they were like, "Yeah, go on." I'm so sure if I went in, they'll be like, "Love, we're closing. We're closing. We're closing." Yeah, so we all know that if we need something, just push Elijah forward first. Yeah.
Man, we need some of that luck, Emily.
No, we really do. You know how you explain the examples about the shop, and then just, it's like the luck of things just naturally happening. You're not even forcing it. It's just an energy that's naturally within you. And please do share the tricks of the trade, because I could do with some of that. Onto the part of your chart that stood out for me. I mean, there's lots of interesting things that came out for me, but this was really an energy that was like, it boomeranged at me. And this was the energy between your Sagittarius and Gemini houses, but more so your Sagittarius rising and Lilith, which I'll go on to explain what that is. But one of the first things that came to mind, and it's not to scare you, was radical beliefs. Like I felt I could sense and feel almost that very strongly. And it's not so much that you radicalize others, but I think you're passionate about the causes that that are near and dear to you. And I think you're also passionate about the world that we live in, the things and the social constructs, the systems that might aka be oppressive, might not be oppressive, but I think you're somebody who innately cares about social justice and the remits around that. And I thought, when I think about Sagittarius and I think about Gemini, they are on the same end of the stick, just opposite ends. Sagittarius answering to the call of faith and tested beliefs, and Gemini really being tested on how much they seek to make a difference in the world through the gift of communication, vocalizing, storytelling, and standing up for, the people who aren't able to use their voices as such. And, when you add Lilith to the mix, which is a planet that speaks to that which we defend passionately, it could be, controversial, it could be the taboo, it could be the unconventional. But it's something that we could go to water about, essentially. And I am interested to find out, like I said, this is between your Gemini house and your Sagittarius house. And, you spoke about your first house being the house of your identity, your physical vessel, how you show up and, navigate the world, really. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, how you go about sharing those controversial opinions and beliefs that you hold, do they shape the discussions that you have with others on a public level, or is this something that you keep private to those who are near and dear to you?
As you were talking, like one example sort of like stands out, and this is during the Corbyn years, when he was leading Labour, which is, I think, the very last time I was affiliated with Labour. But I remember like me and my friends sort of sitting at a restaurant and we were talking, and then I think Elijah probably would agree with this, but I've always loved like politics. I've always loved debating. I think I'm very much someone that enjoys understanding our world and sort of like nitpicking things. And I just remember my friend saying, but why would people need free internet? Like, why is that a human right? And I literally was like, what? Yeah. And then I went into like a whole run as to why it's like having access to internet is a modern day human right, why it's why it's an absolute necessity, how it can cut off parts of society, how it can disenfranchise individuals, how it can then plummet individuals into poverty. Like, I was just like making all these connections and explaining it to someone, and it's like one of my friends was like, yeah, duh, like. And then I just remember us like going back and forth with like our friends, and I was just so incredulous. I was like, guys, I can't believe you think it's not a human right. I was like, I'm just so disappointed. I was like, I'm so disappointed that you don't think this. Mm-hmm. And then lo and behold, a couple of years later, COVID happened. But look, we all need the internet, and now it's nice that actually having the internet is so integral into through life and how we access things and how we interact with one another. I just think that's a real sort of like standout moment is the first thing to mind. But I think in terms of just like my job and like how I got to my career and sort of like the lead up to it now, and kind of thinking about where I want to go after this, I think social justice has always pretty much been an integral part of myself, whether it's like with friends and families, whether I think something is wrong and actually I'm telling people about themselves, maybe not as eloquently as one should, whether it's how I show up at work and I guess the work I do with like the people that I interact with on a daily basis, or like my students now in the career I am. I think I weave it into absolutely everything, from when I'm sort of like running their reflective sessions and we're thinking about work. Actually, something that's come up quite recently is like when we were doing one of our reflective group supervisions, one of my students was like, another student was presenting their case, and another student was just like, oh, that's crimes of passion. And I was just like, I paused and I was like, let's think about the word crimes of passion. And the student was like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't like it. And he was like, why? And I was like, because it's a very infantilizing way of minimizing domestic abuse and almost infantilizing the perpetrator of domestic abuse. Because when you think passion denotes love, it denotes desire, it denotes wanting and, some consensualness within the dynamics. And I was like, but that's not what happens in domestic abuse. And I was like, again, I went onto a whole rant. I was like, media use it to sort of almost water down our like understanding and our reactions to abuse, because no matter the dynamic, abuse is abuse and harm is harm. And a crime of passion is not a synonym to someone experiencing abuse and harm, because then when readers and listeners and viewers hear that, you're just like, well, yeah, of course a person would be harmed because they were so passionate about that person. Person was enacting a sense of control, because that's the bedrock of abuse. It is control, it's subjugation. That's what the abuse is, and you have to call it out for what it is. Again, the student didn't probably think that they're going to get this teaching moment in the reflective space, but I think that's where my natural sense comes out in all different facets of my career. And that student was just like, I hadn't thought of it like that, but actually that makes sense. And I was like, you always have to be careful about how you are being told things, because then and I was like, it's not just you, it's just as a collective, we will then minimize things. And this is when people will start to think, oh yeah, DV is just DV, DA is DA. I was like, no, actually, abuse happens primarily by individuals that are closest to us. And that's why the media can then say, oh, it's crimes of passion, because it's people that's closest to us. And that's how then other things can spur off. And again, I don't want to take us into different realms, but that's how we can minimize things that we really should be caring about and really should be taking consideration into, and really should be like strengthening our social contract as a nation to be like, actually, these things are bad, and the things that we're being told isn't bad isn't actually something we really need to focus on.
No, I feel the passion like from the screen and like as you're speaking, and you spoke about something that's really valid. Like it really took people having to experience COVID to understand like access to internet is not something we all have a privilege to, number one. I think he was then handing out like, data for those who didn't have the funds, resources to get data, Wi-Fi and so forth. But, imagine like, I think the Corbyn elections were I think that was around 2018. And then COVID happened like 2 years afterwards. It took 2 years for people to actually realize and clock on what you were saying. But I can see, and even how you were explaining, because I think the media does at times tend to victim blame, sensationalize things that, romanticize these crimes and domestic violence and domestic abuse. So I think the very fact that you were able to turn that reflective session into a teachable moment, but still stand up for what is socially right, advocating for those who have gone through heinous crimes, I love that passion. And you can tell it's not something that, you had to go to school and learn. It's naturally born within you, So yeah. Thank you so much for sharing those experiences. I really love that. And Elijah, I would also like to reflect this question back at you. Are these opinions, beliefs, the values, the things that you really stand up for, things that you vocalize on a public level, or is it something that you keep reserved for those who are near and dear to you?
One to vocalize I'll be one to vocalize how I see a situation, how I see it fit for people that are closer to me. I won't ever call it out necessarily.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, that's not. I just usually say that's not how I do it.
Okay.
Or if I ever see a sense of injustice with someone or a friend or anyone, I would usually pull the person to one side rather than calling it out there and then. So yeah, that's just how I would usually attack things.
I'm interested to ask you both, what's one thing you admire about how passionate your sibling is about standing up for causes, whether that's political causes, social causes? What's one thing that really, when you look at it, you're like, damn man, like I really, really respect this?
On that one, Hilda's sense of politics. I don't tap as much in politics as she does. Yes. But I'm like, well, you know what? You absolutely love it. You love talking about politics, and now I'm working in a space where people are talking about politics. I'm like, who would actually enjoy this conversation? My sister. And then I'm just sat there like, for me it's politics,
and you can feel it. It's like, as you were speaking, Hilda, I was just like activism, and you spoke about sociological theories. I was like, the humanitarian within you, it lives, breathes, and speaks within you. Like you cannot deny that as part of your essence.
So Hilda, when I was looking at your chart, I was immediately drawn to your 10th house, which is the 10th house represents our public persona, our career, our public image, if you like, public branding, but it's also like representative of our ambition. And you have your beautiful Virgo sun, which is what illuminates you and how people might see or experience you. But it's also housed to your Mercury and Jupiter. Mercury being the way that your mind processes, the way that your mind expresses. Comms is how Emily would say it. It's the planet of comms, all your communication faculties. And Jupiter, as I said earlier, being the planet that brings luck, abundance, opportunity, success, and expansion. So when I was looking at this house and knowing what I know about your career, I was just like, I have to dig into this a little bit. So I'd love to know for you if you've ever felt like your life centers around service. And why I ask you that question is because it's all of those beautiful planets are in the sign of Virgo, and Virgo is very much about our health, about our the way that we relate to our health, but there's a big drive for Virgo native people to be of service or to be in alignment to some sort of service. So I would love to know about how you relate to that or don't relate. And also if there were any parental influences that shaped your ambition. Now, why I say that is because the 10th house to some people is also ruled by the father. So I would love to know about all things to do with service and you.
I think, yeah, it's very much an integral part of my life. And I don't, gosh, I hope this doesn't sound very stereotypical, but it's something that just feels embedded within me. My first career out of uni was working in sort of like drug and alcohol as like a drug and alcohol counselor. And then it kind of just sort of like we kind of evolved into being a social worker. And I think it's always been a really good fit for me. And I know, I think when you're saying has like my parental figures shaped my career, I think inadvertently, yes. I wouldn't necessarily say it was like your stereotypical like sit down conversation, go into the health profession or the social care profession. I think it's more so about how life experiences has impacted me through sort of like their dynamic and how I guess I have sort of like absorbed, internalized and thought, I guess, how could I then make use of my experiences for others, and how can I sort of like not necessarily project that, but how can I guess, yeah, just use the experiences that I've seen, witnessed and gone through, and how that can then filter into my work career. Even becoming a social worker, the reason why I say it's more inadvertently than directly is because when I was like thinking between career, so I worked for a charity up until it got 2P'd over, and it was either like you take a lower pay or you leave. And I was like, I'm just gonna leave. I'm gonna go to another job and figure things out. So I took on a night practitioner job at a community-based therapy mental health home. And that was really rough. But I was like, I need to just figure things out. I know I'm going to do a master's. I don't know what in. And my parents were like, go and become a teacher, because obviously my sister was a teacher. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I just remember us getting into like really big spats about it, because they were like, yeah, do that. And I get it. Like, their limited worldview in terms of like reputable professions, and I guess what they've had access to their knowledge and understanding of, like they've seen their oldest daughter become a teacher, become very established, gone to like really high heights. So it's like, okay, well, just follow in her footsteps. I guess I knew deep down that's just not me. She says now holding a bit of a teaching role, but in a different capacity. I just knew, I guess, becoming a teacher for children just wasn't it. And I don't know how much this plays a part into my chart and how things manifest, but it was actually my pastor who mentioned becoming a social worker. And I was like, oh, I haven't thought of it. And then like she just put me in contact with her friend who's also like another pastor within my church. He spoke to me about it, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like this sounds like it's a good job for me, especially just to springboard off. It means I get another qualification. I love to learn. And I was like, I could do this. I can definitely do this with the skill set I'm already going into. So I definitely think it absolutely manifests. And I guess from that moment onwards, everything sort of just fell into place really seamlessly. Like university I went to was like the perfect fit. Like the master's degree was a really good master's degree. And then just getting jobs afterwards just felt really seamless. So it just felt like this was what I'm supposed to be doing. I think like in a wider sense, like a sense of service has always felt part and parcel to me. I guess it's just never felt like it's a difficult part. I just think it's very much, like I said before, an embedded part of me, that I think how I perceive things and how I do things has that that's part of my thinking, and it's a natural consideration for me. I think at times, I think the space that I'm in now, there's definitely been a pivot over like the last couple of years to think about doing things I guess not necessarily from a people pleasing tendency. I think sometimes at times I've been like, okay, I'm doing this one because I want to, but maybe this is like the only way I can connect with people. And then there has been that shift where I'm more intentional about actually doing things because I want to, but because you genuinely want to, not that you feel like actually this is the only way you can connect and communicate with individuals. So there has been that sort of like subtle shifting within me where I'm just doing things. I guess it feels more genuine. It feels more, I don't think genuine is the right word. I think it feels more fulfilling and more worthwhile for me. I'm like, actually, I'm doing things, yes, out of service, but because it resonates wholly with me and not partially.
And with that, as I was hearing you speak, I just kept thinking of, walk with me here. Whenever I go to get a massage, I always ask like the masseuse, so if you're doing this for me, who does it for you? Like, who looks after your body? And that's what I kept feeling when you were talking. So with you having such an integral connection or relationship to service, how do you switch roles so that you're in receiving mode? Sorry to throw that wild card.
No, it's fine. I don't think I'm very good at receiving. I think it's something that I should get better with, but I'm not necessarily the best when it comes to like letting other people do things for me. I think it's more something that needs to kind of be forced onto me, but yeah, I don't think I do well in that. But I think it's like there's a bit of a duality, I think, because I'm always the person, not always the person, but I think I'm perceived as the person that has it together. I also think it doesn't necessarily crop up into the minds of others that, oh, does she need help? But then at the same time, I'm not very good at asking for help. So I think it's probably an area in my life that I should do better with and pay more attention to. But yeah, no, I'm not necessarily the best at that.
Do you think it's something that you would like to shift or change?
I think in the grand scheme of things, it's probably the thing that's like lower down on my list of things to change.
Yeah.
Should I pay more attention to it? Probably. Will I? Probably not.
And I love that because like with your career as well, there's so much that relies on your voice and communication and expression, and also making people, not making, but allowing people to feel safe in order for them to then in turn open up that communication to you because of the type of role that you have. So again, that Mercury there, that sitting at home within Virgo, is so important to your service.
So Hilda, quite like me, I was drawn to, the energy, the supportive energy of your Virgo placements, but also your Capricorn placements. Now, when I say your Capricorn placements, this is your second house, which speaks to the beliefs we have. I think it can also speak to our values, what we passionately defend, but also some of the ways we can earn an income. And then your cluster of Virgo placements, which is in the 10th house. And, Mimi spoke about communication, Mercury, using your voice, advocacy. I also think this could also speak to the impact or the imprint we seek to leave in the world, and the legacy we're here to create, and also the ways in which we seek to show up through our career, or just the exciting ways that the 10th house speaks to that sort of energy. So I'm curious to know whether there have been times in your life where your grounded intuition, knack for precision and empathy, and the desire to effect change amongst underrepresented groups through advocacy and communication guide and informs the work that you do.
Oh, on a daily basis.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think sometimes a part of what I do, or I think what makes me, and not necessarily to toot my own horn, but I'm a good social worker. I'm a very good social worker. But I think a part of that is, I guess I'm not just a strictly textbooky social worker. I'm not just the, this is what you have to do. I think there's a good mix of me being what I like to refer to myself. I mean, it's a bit, I'm not going to try and deviate because I say I like to be as ethical as possible within the structures at play. And I think the reason why I say that is I also hold in mind that the structures that create social work aren't necessarily created within the best macro systems. And I think when we see what's best for society, is social work really a framework that should actually exist? I don't want to put us down that way, so I'll bring us back. But I think I like to practice as best as possible and as person-centered as possible. I think that's a better way of saying it. And I think doing so, you have to take into consideration what you're seeing, but also what's guiding you in terms of like the risks that you're with, in terms of how you advocate for people, how you do the job. Because I think a lot of people can fall into just doing tick boxes and just doing the sake of doing things, and I'm never guided by that when it comes to work. And I think sometimes I can work myself to overexhaustion or overextend myself a lot of the times, because I'm just passionate about the people that I work with and ensuring that they've been disenfranchised by either their caregivers or by the systems at play. And actually, what can I do? I'm present within their life for only a moment, but how can that moment impact them for eternity, until they can then become the adults that we hope and wish for them to be? So that, I think that's definitely a guiding force within my career. I think a lot of the times when I speak to my manager, I'm always like, I just don't feel like this is right, or this doesn't feel okay, or I don't like this because of this. And sometimes there's not necessarily rhyme or reason, but I'm like, I guess it manifests down the line, and I'm like, that's it. Or switching roles now, where I guess my primary focus is the adults that I'm supporting into the profession. I know that you let my instinct guide me sometimes of some of the conversations, and I know I've spoken to me outside of it with like one particular student where just at the beginning it was really difficult, and I think one of our conversations I just had to put things down, and I was like, this feels really combative. What is happening here? What is going on? What is showing up? And I guess some may say that's not necessarily the best way to have a conversation, but for me, I was just like, effectively we're stonewalling one another because we can't get past what's really like manifesting in this moment, for you to communicate the way you're communicating to me, and for me to either be misunderstanding you or taking what you're saying and trying to delve into the surface. And that was a really illuminating conversation. It just made our relationship as like practice educator, manager and student so much more rich. And now like I look at that particular student and I'm just filled with such a big sense of pride and awe, because I'm just like, their journey has been very transformative, just for themselves and for their ability to become a really well-rounded practitioner. And I think a lot of that is guided by the fact that I'm able to, I guess, listen to my intuition when it comes to working with individuals and sort of like just leaning into it. I think it's the only time I like probably listen to my intuition quite wholly. I always say that work seems to flow because I seem to just listen to myself and respond to what's coming up for me. I don't necessarily do that in hold a lot of hesitancy, or I over analyze, or I over consider things. But when it's I think I trust myself completely to know that actually you've got this, you know that this is going to be okay. And even when there are like mishaps or quite sad moments, I know I can sort of step back and say I did everything that I could. And even though we still got to a sad eventuality, actually I showed up and I made sure that I did all that I could do. And it's always been recognized. So yeah, I think of that, especially when I'm thinking about like next career moves and stuff, because I think of what I consider them to be my strong suits, which I think is everything you guys are sort of like naming: my ability to communicate, my sense of social justice, and it's my consideration of like the systems at play in terms of the world, and what would be, I guess, a very fulfilling position for me to then step into. So,
yeah, I mean, honestly, like my heart is swelling because I can just feel that, you know, how you mentioned that you might not listen to your spirit, your instincts, your intuition in other remits of your life. But when it comes to work, that's the one place where you're going to lead, you're going to follow, you're going to pick up that call. And I see that between the second house and the 10th house. But I also see that in the ways that you've explained that you're not just this tick box social worker who's going by what the textbook says, because there are some situations that are going to call for you to step outside of what you've learned in the educational system and follow what your heart is saying. And as you mentioned quite rightly so, there are some, practices, although I'm not a social worker myself, I've volunteered in the family court, and I've seen that there are some outdated systems, practices, guidelines, and so forth. But I need to make sure that whatever content I have, whether it's for minimal time or whether it's for lengthy time, makes that impact. And then also that guiding you into the decisions you make and the careers that you're potentially going to go into. Like, I really love that for you, and I see it and I feel it. So thank you so much for sharing that. And, I hope this guide continues to guide you. And if you ever are in doubt, if you ever feel confused, just know and reflect on these moments that you are doing your earthly mission here.
Okay. So this next part is like our guidance section where we ask both Hilda and Elijah if there's anything that they just wanted us to pick out of their chart. And Hilda, I was like looking at your chart, and what was screaming at me was your Aries house. So you have, I don't know if we've had a conversation about your fire energy, 5th house in Aries, and you have your part fortune there. Now, the part fortune, in its simplest terms, is what can bring success, but success is how we define it. So it could be the love, the abundance, the joy, just anything that gives us that sense of good. And traditionally, the 5th house is ruled by Leo, and it links to our heart, it links to children and creativity. And the biggest thing I think for me with the 5th house is about how we express those things, or how we express our creativity. And for you having your part fortune there, I was like, this is untapped energy. Like, for success, I kept hearing untapped energy, and how you finding your creative outlet, you finding a connection to your creation could be a real way where it's almost like your inner child is the one that leads you to success. By following the dreams of your inner child, by following the path of your inner child, like that's the thing that allows you to feel, no, like I'm living a good life, like we're good, like that kind of energy. So if there's anything I would say in terms of like what you can set as an intention or walk away with, is finding something that allows you to feel creative, or where you can start to develop or cultivate a relationship with your creation energy. Whatever that looks like, no matter how you define it, I feel like that will be something that can bring you to a sense of fulfillment. Do you tap into creation?
I don't think I do. I've always grown up saying I'm not a very creative person.
Okay.
I've always thought that's not a part of me. Like, I look at either like my friends who are more so like in the creative industry, or like people that I know growing up, and sort of like seeing how things have like manifested them. And I'm just like, that's me. Like, I'm not that girl. I'm the logical, let's have a plan kind of. I think I say all the time, but I think I don't associate myself with creativity whatsoever. So I would 1000% agree with you. It's definitely something I don't tap into. I guess because it's just something I don't perceive to have.
I'm just gonna bring Elijah into this one. Do you view Hilda as creative, or is there anything that you think would help Hilda to become creative?
I mean, she says she might not feel creative, or she might not be creative, but I kind of see it differently.
Really?
One instance when she done a slipper paint with friends, I looked at it and I was like, you know what, that's a very creative drawing and better than anything I could have done. I know me, I'm drawing, and that's better than what anything I could have done. So she can draw, crochet. It's another creative thing to do. She's done that in the past.
That's true.
So it's things she could go back to.
Yeah.
That could spark creativity in a way for her, which then could lead on to other things, who knows. But I'll probably say if you want to go back into those, tap into that.
Fair.
I'm smiling because again, like this is something that's so pure within sibling dynamics, is that sometimes we might not feel that we have something or see that, but a sibling is another form of a mirror, and they're able to be like, but hang on, I remember this, or no, you do have this. And it's such a gentle, loving mirror that Elijah was just able to just off the cuff just say those things to you. So that was like a perfect moment of synastry there. So thank you for sharing that, Elijah.
So, I really, as I was looking at your chart and thinking about the area of guidance that, I could possibly, echo back out to you, I kind of just felt that, between your Capricorn moon and your Venus in Libra, and when you said you didn't really feel creative, I was like, girlie, your Venus is in Libra, like this is within you, this is a natural expression. But I can understand also, as you explained, perhaps when you stand in your own self and you look at others, you might not view yourself in that light. But like Elijah has highlighted, it is something that you have been doing. You have done these things. And I think about your Cap moon, your Venus in Libra, and essentially there is a square that's happening. So this is when the planets might be moving in conflict, you can say. They are colliding, but it's a bit of a tense energy. And when I looked at that, the first thing that came to mind, and this is, you can let me know if this resonates or doesn't, I just felt that there could be times in life where you don't allow yourself to have fun on a whim, or without feeling weighed down or guilty about having that fun at times. That's good.
I'm surprised Elijah's not jumping up. That's good. Because he was so, like, you need to just do more fun things. And it spurs me on to do.
I really felt that.
It's not even the fact that it's fun, it's just like less risk assessment of what could happen about the situation, and just say, what have I learned? What do I gain? And what benefits have I got after doing that? Rather than saying, about it, and rather than thinking, do it, and then you just learn as you go.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I always like plan fun. Like I'll plan a holiday, or I'll plan my time off, and I'll like plan, like I diarize everything. Like I need to just plan it all, and everything just makes sense. I think there's very little that I do very spontaneously. She bought just a car very spontaneously, so there's that. But yeah, but even that, it still made sense because of like other factors that led up to this. Like, I can do this.
And another thing as well, we walked from Morden to London Bridge.
Yeah.
Just thought, you know what, we'll get up and do it one day. I said, let's do it, and then she done it with me. So that's another thing. Didn't even risk to say, you know what, let's stop off. Although she did say, we'll stop off to get a break. And I was like, let's not stop.
I was going to say, like, we need to have a break. We need to charge our watches. Like, we need to have some breakfast.
We can worry about that when we get to London Bridge.
Yeah. I do wholeheartedly understand the organizational mode that you might be coming from. That is an innate energy that, even if anybody wanted to take apart from you, it's within your blood, it's within your system. We can't change that about yourself. But I think being in your sibling dynamic that you have with Elijah, and him being able to foster and say to you, you know what, let's just go. And even if you have moments where you're like, okay, let me schedule in this break and let's schedule in this rest stop, he's able to prompt you and be like, no, we will deal with that later on. We'll deal with that once we get to the destination. I think it's in these moments where you will be able to let go of the planning mode, let go of thinking and controlling the potential scenarios ahead, and just be present in the moment, because that's what I was feeling. I felt that there could be times where, you might even be in the situation where you go on a whim, but then like planning mode, hard work, thinking about all the details catches up with you so much that you aren't actually able to immerse yourself in the experience. So, I love that Elijah is that person that's like, you know what, forget about those details. We'll deal with that once we get to the destination. But for now, let's enjoy the experience, or walk into Morden or wherever you guys went. And I think, for me, I really do see creativity within you, even if it isn't the lens that you view it from. And I do believe that your esteem, because as I spoke about, the second house is linked to our beliefs, our values, but also our esteem. And this is where your moon sits. And your natal Venus, your Venus in Libra, sits in the 11th house. So that's like our wildest dreams, our altruistic goals, the alignment to causes and people who really get and understand our visions. And there's such an interconnectedness between these two houses that you will support your emotional growth, but also it will help you feel alive. And I think that speaks to your Venus and Libra. And meeting souls who are on the same path as you can nurture you and also keep you grounded, would speak to your Capricorn moon too. So I think leaning into those, impulsive journeys, impulsive trips, impulsive, pursuits, it might not make sense to people around you, but if you decide one day that you want to go backpacking in Mount Snowdon, and it's the impulsive whim, yes, you're not going to take away from the planning side of things, but being able to honor those moments where you just get up on a whim and you follow that call within will help you feel less so much about, not feeling like you're deserving of these experiences as such. But I think there is so much joy in having a sibling who's able to see that within you, but also hold you from a place of love and say, darling sister, let's just have the fun. We'll deal with the finer details later.
It does. It's quite interesting that we both speak about like different parts of my chart, but I feel like the golden thread is very much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the same in terms of like creativity, just following instinct.
Yeah.
I hate. I don't hate it. I'm just like, it's so uncomfortable. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I completely forgot that, Hilda, you have your Venus in Libra until like Emily literally just mentioned it. But you are the person that I go to when I'm like, I don't know what to wear, what skincare do I need, what makeup, how should I do my hair? Like, you're the go-to person. Hilda's like developed a whole Pinterest board of like fashion stuff, and she did it like that.
Yeah.
Like, I blinked and it was done. Like, if that's not creative vision and creative eye, I don't know what it is. That is a form of creation. Like, being able to just put things together and know kind of like keep an eye on what's trendy, what's fashionable, but also know how that fits for an individual and like put your own spin on it. I think that's something you really have a good eye for. So yeah, don't underestimate that creativity.
No, don't. And it supports your esteem. It really, because Venus in Libra, again, I'm not saying that you need to go off for the win and become our next Van Gogh, but it's something that will it will really nurture your esteem. It will help you see yourself in a different lens, but also support your moon, because Venus traditionally rules the second house. That is home to where your moon sits. And I think there's such a connection between those two houses. And, I'm going to go ahead and, I guess you can say round up today's discussion, which has been really interesting and enjoyable. And I've loved having you both on here. Despite initially being nervous, I feel like it's really flowing. And I just love the energy from the both of you. And, as Mimi has mentioned, we love to seal off the episode with a hot seat question, not to put you under further pressure. And it's a question that I will reflect back to both of you. So, you can decide who's going to go first. But for anyone who is listening and has siblings and wishes to deepen their relationship with their siblings, what would be your advice, on how to approach this?
Get everyone in a room, play a fun game, allow for a space where you can be vulnerable, where you can share details that your siblings may not know about yourself, and allow for a deeper discussion, deeper reflection about one another. Even if it's just a fun game that spurs interaction, a conversation about past experience, because you never know how, I don't know, like 4 siblings may have felt. You never know how each one of them have felt under a certain circumstance in their life, because the oldest might have seen it different to the younger. So just having that dialogue and just essentially talking as siblings in general, just seeing how the other half lives, how they experience it, and just go from there.
It's so crazy because literally the first thing that came to my mind was a shared activity.
Oh my gosh.
Same thing. I was like, just do a shared activity that you all could at least enjoy
Mhm.
partaking in. I don't know, maybe that just speaks to us as a sibling group in general, but
Mhm.
yeah, I think sometimes our best moments are when we just do things all together and we're either like screaming at each other because we're playing a game, or like we're sort of like traveling together. Yeah, I think it's shared activity because it takes the focus away from you all, but it like Elijah said, it allows space for a natural flow of conversation to just arise, and whatever that topic may be, it just will come up. I guess there has to be the willingness as well. I think you could do a shared activity quite like forcibly. So I think there has to be a shared understanding that you all want to at least deepen the relationship.
Yeah.
I think things can be done, by force, and then it's just not the same. So yeah, a shared activity, but also a willingness to want to deepen your connection with one another.
My best mate, he's got a younger brother and an older brother. And I was speaking to my brother and I was like, do you find it crazy that some siblings don't talk to each other? He's like, yeah, I find it absolutely, he was like, I find it absolutely bonkers, like, to not speak to your own siblings. I was like, yeah. And we sat there and was like, not even to say hello for like a whole year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Some people can go a lifetime and hate their siblings. I was just like, yeah, crazy. So,
No, it's very true what you're saying about how people could go a whole lifetime without even having that bond, saying hello, almost being strangers, although you come from the same parents or you come from the same household. But I think how you both have grouped this together and have said, you know, a starting point is to, you know, have a shared activity, do something that's fun. But Hilda, you've also added the extra layer that, you know, there has to be some sort of willingness to meet in the middle. You can't, you know, it can't be from a space of, oh, it's being forced, and then it's like, you know, the vibe is off already, and then people just feel that, you know, they don't even want to mesh together. But I like how you both have made it very simple. It's not stuff that needs to be extravagant. It doesn't need to be something that needs to be high costly, but it's something that can bring everyone together. And it could simply just be going to the park and kicking a ball. It could be going to the park and doing something like a picnic, but it's that shared communal sense of coming together from a space of wanting to bond and interact with each other.
I think that was just like perfectly said. I've just like, from someone who comes from the other end of the spectrum of not having a close relationship with my siblings, like this has been beautiful for me to hear the ways that you would and the ways that you do nurture each other within that sibling dynamic. So really, really massive thank you to you both for sharing your journey, sharing your love and your insights, and almost making me cry. But I appreciate you so much. For anyone who is listening, Emily and I would love to hear your connections to your siblings. We want to know about the people that feel like family to you and the people that feel like home to you, because that's how me and Emily started. You know, we love to kind of share that bond and that closeness, and we want to reach more people and broaden that love further out. So thank you for listening. Please like, share, comment, join us on all of our various platforms. We're on Substack, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, and now we're on bloody TikTok.
Yeah.
So please come and join the Two Mutables in a Pod family, and we will speak to you next time.
thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.